Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Great, thank you. How about yourselves?
Good.
That's good. Have we got some changes going on today?
We do.
Wow.
Swanny can't join us. She's busy. She's far too busy and important for us today.
She's gone cruising, hasn't she?
Gone to one of my
Is that what
favourite.
she's doing? I can't remember what she's doing.
One of my favourite places in the world, Rotto.
Oh, she's at Rottnest,
For
right?
those who
Okay.
don't know, it's Rottnest Island. Yeah.
That's where we got our diving certificates.
Pet quokka. Oh,
We
right.
did have a pet quokka in our tent. It wasn't a pet; it just got into the tent.
They know how to work zips, apparently.
Oh, they're pretty smart.
Cheeky.
So instead of Swanny today, we've got Tony.
Oh my God!
Woohoo!
Yeah. Tony's actually going to do a story, but before we get there, who are we? I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey.
And together we are
Trial by
Wine.
Beautiful. And what are we drinking?
Well, we're having a Halden Sauvignon Blanc, and I'm not normally a fan of Sauvignon Blanc. I think I might have told you about this one once before. They make it in the traditional French style, so it actually has a lot of flavour to it rather than just being a kind of washed out wine. So yeah,
Oh, I do like a Sauv though, but
very
yeah,
nice.
all right, cool.
and you
And
guys.
Tony, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Wolf Pass exclusive release Chardonnay.
Exclusive release. Is it for your eyes only, or is it more less exclusive than that?
No, that's a top secret release. That's $10 more, that one.
No, there's a
Gotcha.
secret handshake to get a
Right.
bottle, is there?
Excellent.
Cool.
And Schmitty, what about Hugh?
I'm taking up the Swanny mantle today, and I'm drinking a Pepsi Max.
Oh.
I've got 7 weeks till we get married, and I need to lose a lot of weight, so I'm trying to lay off the grog.
Oh, I'm surprised you're not doing this podcast from a treadmill then.
I've already done 7,000 steps today. Thank you very much. I've become very active and I'm doing my best. And, so far there are early positive signals, but I'm not going to brag about it because it could all get put back on in 5 seconds' time. I may indulge a little later, but I'm starting slow today.
Very good.
Okay, well, good for you.
Thank you.
We will
now,
cheer you back.
Tony. So, Tony,
Yes,
it's a big moment. You've been sitting next to me watching how we do this for, 18 months?
Yeah.
I reckon.
Yeah.
Close to.
I'll be interested to see how this turns out today.
Must be awfully
No
daunting.
pressure.
It is now. No pressure. No, it would be nice to see it done well.
For once, that's right. And a
Wow.
professional in the chair.
Someone's been taking her bitch pills.
I don't know. Is it hot where you are?
Oh,
Yeah, so hot, and the power's gone out, so we can't have any air conditioning on. We've got a tiny little fan.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 37 degrees or something.
yeah.
So,
So
Oh, it's not that hot here, but it feels hot. Yeah.
Well, today I'm going to talk about the biggest sting in the biggest state in America. And surprisingly, it's going well so far.
we're smashing it.
That was quite the reaction. Yeah.
All right, the story is about the most famous drugs bust in Texas history. And it's about the eccentric cop that made it all happen. Really unusual guy, Tom Coleman. And he was the Texas Outstanding Lawman of the Year in 1999 for what he achieved.
Wow.
I love that as a prize, the Texas Outstanding Lawman.
Yeah. That sounds very Texas, doesn't it?
Can women get into it nowadays, do you know? Or
Yeah. There are apparently women in the Texas Rangers now. Not very many of them, but there are some women Texas Rangers.
And it's the prize of 10-gallon hat or something. Right?
20
No,
gallons.
Tom
He's already got a
Coleman.
10-gallon. Yeah.
Tom Coleman wore a 10-gallon hat
He did.
before he
There you
became
go. Yeah,
Texas
there you go.
Outstanding.
I
Called
live
it.
and breathe.
Yeah. I told you he was an unusual lad. My primary sources were articles and interviews by the Texas Observer, The Age, the BBC, 60 Minutes in the US, and a book by a guy called Nate Blakesby based on Tom's extraordinary policing style. But it's also a detailed book on Tulia, the town itself. It's exhaustive. It's all built around, Tom Coleman's achievements. But Tulia is the biggest town in Swisher County. Oh, sorry, I forgot. It's been pointed out to my colleague here that I also use Wikipedia, and the Prison Legal News were also helpful in providing the story. Tulia is the biggest town in Swisher County.
Can you say that fast? Swisher County? Swisher?
Swisher.
Shut up.
We've got a
Swisher.
Swiss accountant.
Swisher.
This is Swisher.
Swisher, yeah.
Well, our accountant is more swish than yours. Tulia is home to some 5,000 people and declining. It's a town that's not going the right way. It's one of the 26 most southerly Texas counties that make up the Texas Panhandle.
Is it because people are moving away, or because people are being murdered faster than they can breed?
No, this is a story about drugs rather than murder. Actually,
They're moving away, I'd say.
Yeah, right.
Because of their drug influence?
Yeah.
It used to be an amazing food town, corn and other such things.
And it's where all the panhandlers came from.
Ah, rightio.
I made that up.
It's not. No.
It's because he talked about Texas Panhandle.
But it used to feed the country, those sort of claims.
The food bowl of Texas.
Yeah, if
That's
Swanny
right.
were here, she would actually be telling us all about the geography of the area and how many kilos of, produce is produced, etc. Yeah.
And it would have been amazing.
It would have been really good, but
a
she's
few
not
years
here,
ago.
so
But
tough. Yeah.
So much now.
So it's in the Texas Panhandle. It's 70 kilometres from Amarillo, and we might know that city because of Tony Christie's achievements in 1972.
Or not.
Do you remember it?
No.
Yeah, and Peter Kay did a re-recording of it. Is this the way to Amarillo?
No.
Every night I've been hugging my pillow, dreaming dreams of Amarillo and sweet Marie who waits for me. And interestingly, Peter Kay did a comedy relief version of this song, right, in the UK, 15, 20 years ago. And he had all these celebrities in it. And you can see it on YouTube, and he's redone it with some of the existing celebrities or the original celebrities that were in it, and then some new ones. But guess who shows up at one point? He's dancing along with, the one that after he died, it came out, Operation U Tree. It came out that he was the biggest grooming, pedophile, rapist.
Oh, you're talking about Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy Savile, that's it.
Right, yeah.
So there's one very uncomfortable bit where he's having a dance with Jimmy Savile. I'm like, oh God, surely that should be taken down. That if ever I agreed with cancel culture, we should cancel Jimmy Savile. But anyway, I digress.
When you said, do we know Amarillo? I was thinking it's something that Iggy Azalea sings about in Fancy. Because I've always thought she said, first things first, Amarillo. And I've never really known why, but she actually says, I just Googled it, first things first, I'm the realist.
Right.
And I was getting Amarillo from Steel Magnolias, where they have at the wedding, they have the grey Amarillo.
Armadillo?
Armadillos.
Oh, sorry.
Armadillos.
Totally different. Cancel that.
I know. I was thinking about the armadillos.
Yeah.
When we did the Bernie case and he shot the lady with the armadillo gun.
Yeah.
Same thought. And I bet they've got armadillos in Amarillo, but we're not actually in Amarillo, are we?
We're not.
No, we're 70 miles from it. That's how insignificant you are. This town you've never heard of is only 70 miles away from Amarillo.
From that joint.
Right. We're doing well.
Tulia's not known for much of anything, really, in the state, Texas, where everything is supposed to be larger than life. No one that fought and died at the Alamo lived in Tulia. No world-renowned Tex-Mex chef lived in Tulia. And no citizen ever found black gold or Texas tea on their land.
Does it have a whorehouse in it, though?
Oh,
Texas
God,
has a horse. Texas.
I can see Dom DeLuise right now.
No? Okay.
No, not one.
Not anymore. They're all moving away.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, two moderately famous people did come from Tulia. The first being a basketball player called Gib Ford, who won gold with the US team in Melbourne in 1956, when, that was the first Olympics in Australia. And he went on to become the CEO and chairman of Converse Sports.
Oh,
Yeah, I
nice.
didn't know that. That's
I finally
so-
heard of something you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I knew we had the Olympic Games in '56 in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And did you know? I think that the Hungarian team defected. Maybe
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
there was a big uproar and that was the same year as the uprising. Little fact about the 1956.
Turn it around to your dad,
Games.
yeah. Turn it about your dad. It's all about your
He
dad.
didn't come out for a couple of years after that, so get your facts right. Anyway,
If anyone thinks that Schmitty and Tony are having a lot of gripes with each other, this is just normal.
yeah.
Don't stress.
We like to call it banter.
Yes. The other famous person was not a good athlete, nor did he become a mover and shaker in the business world. Tom Coleman was a lowly policeman who pretty much single-handedly went undercover to wreck a drug syndicate and send the offenders to jail for a very, very long time in mid-1999. Tom was the son of Texas Ranger Joe Coleman, and we all know the Reverend Chuck Norris and his fellow white-hatted, saddle-sore cops enjoy in Texas.
Yeah, if he does one, what do you call it, roundhouse kick, every woman for 50 kilometres is pregnant. At some point there were all these Chuck Norris jokes about, how virile and impressive and manly Chuck Norris was. And I remember the one that if he does a roundhouse kick, everyone gets pregnant.
Yeah.
Right.
No, the thing about Texas Rangers is that they're almost, they're almost untouchable. They're so big in Texas, such an important thing in Texas, that it would have been good for Tom to have achieved something, because he didn't make the Rangers. Very, very few people make the Texas Rangers.
What's the difference between rangers and sheriffs and cops?
Rangers are an independent state group of policemen. They work across borders. They go where they want. They go where they think there's trouble.
Let's just do whatever
So
they
they
like.
are under a federal
Because
sort of thing?
they are. Well,
No, but
they're not paid by the feds. They're paid by Texas.
Right.
But they're so respected that, a Texas Ranger is welcome anywhere if he's helping you chase.
What's the equivalence?
Chase crime.
Is like the
There is no
Canadian
equivalent.
Mounties?
No, there
or-
is.
No.
Aren't there, so there's, as I understand it, there's the Texas Rangers and there's the Power Rangers.
Swallow that.
Is that-
Oh yeah, no, I've heard of
Is that
them.
right?
Tony
Yeah.
nearly
That's
sprayed
even
Chardonnay all over the
even
screens.
tougher group to get into.
Yeah, that's right. yeah. Possibly less respected though than the Texas Rangers.
He wasn't sadly a ranger, but he did go across Texas from town to town, helping county police forces prevent crime by volunteering to go undercover. There's nobody knew him as he went from town to town. He went undercover quite nicely.
So how did he get that gig? That sounds like, you just not rock up to a county and go, hey, do you want some help? I'll go undercover.
Well, you kind of do, but I'll come back to that bit later. You kind of do in America at this time, and I'll give you the reasons why a bit later.
I'll wait with bated breath.
He worked undercover all the time, so working entirely alone, and he consequently, things turned bad, and I want you to think Line of Duty here. Things gone really bad.
If they've seen it.
It would have been. You've seen Line of Duty, no?
Oh, the English?
Yeah.
The English
love it.
undercover.
Yeah.
Right. There's no way people would have got to him in time to help him out. I mean, the guy had balls.
I'd hope so.
Well, it's so confusing now. He declined to wear a wire, preferring to write notes on his arms, on crumpled cigarette packets.
Is that usable in court?
It has its problems, which again we'll come
to. I feel like I'd rather have someone wear a wire and hear it said rather than see it written on a note on someone's leg.
Yeah, this is very true. Although it is possible.
You could
you could lose the evidence completely.
Yeah.
It is possible to get over the problem in court, as he will prove.
Okay.
While he never achieved his dad's paramount level of policing, he sure matched his dad for the size of his balls.
Did they actually have a contest?
Is that a ball?
No, there's no actual photos, and all discussions about that are purely hypothetical.
Okay.
Made up by Tony.
Yeah.
Trial by one fact.
Thanks entirely to Tom's nearly 18 months of undercover work, almost all of the 40-odd cases were successfully prosecuted.
That's an impressive clearance rate.
Mm-hmm.
Tom enjoyed the admiration of the local sheriff, the judge, and townsfolk alike. He'd said that locals would tip their hats and mouth the words, "That was thank you," by the way.
Okay.
Wherever he went. That doesn't work well on radio.
Audio show, yeah.
But I realise it's funny. I'm jabbering on about the main cop in this story, and it's unusual for a crime show. You got to talk about those facing prosecution. So let's get on to that. In the pre-dawn raid on July the 23rd, 1999, based on information compiled by Tom Coleman, local police and state troopers in full SWAT team gear. I mean, these guys looked scary. They had all sorts of shit on them. Like, you couldn't see their faces or anything.
Yeah.
They roused 46 men and women from their homes and paraded them in front of the media, charging them in front of the media in full view for maximum dramatic effect. Some of the people dragged out houses had little clothing on. All of them were, semi-traumatized and extremely unkempt, shall we say. Of the 46 arrested, 39 were African Americans, and the remainder were in relationships with African Americans.
But that had nothing to do with it, surely.
Surely.
Mm.
This was close to or nearing 20% of the adult coloured population.
I don't think we call people coloured.
Population of children.
I don't think we call them coloured.
I
think you say close to 20% of the African American.
I've said it twice already. I can't keep saying African American.
I don't care how many times you have to say it. I'm not getting done with this.
We'll go with AAs.
No. This was close to 20%.
AAs, that's so much better than KKK.
Tulia. I mean, it's not that hard to say.
Anyway, by people of colour, it was being questioned. If 1 in every 5 of our ghetto people are peddling drugs, who the hell are they selling them to?
Good question, I reckon.
Yeah. Mm. It was a question no one in town seemed interested in answering.
Tony, when you said that they were really scary, they had, face coverings and everything, I was going to say like hijabs or something, but
no,
but I filtered that myself so that Schmitty didn't have to.
Well done.
No, it's more like ski mask wear.
Yeah,
right.
With black, the predominant colour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But this question of who the hell are they selling the drugs to was a question no one in town seemed interested in answering. No one in the sheriff's office. None of the prosecutors, or the defending lawyers.
So they're happy with people using drugs, just not selling them.
Yeah, and the judge certainly wasn't worried about this ratio.
Can I ask what drugs they were? Was it cocaine?
Yeah, no, cocaine.
Yeah, what a shock.
Almost entirely. Almost entirely cocaine.
Drug. Yeah, right. No wonder they weren't interested. I'm kind of thinking that the rich people and the powerful people in town are using the cocaine, and so probably happy with it being sold, to be honest, and certainly don't want the users to get caught. But anyway.
Swisher, not swisher than everybody, but pretty swisher.
More swish than most.
Swisher County Sheriff Larry Stewart had been in office since 1991, and no one looked to be able to knock him off his perch. When in January 1998 he was at his most popular, he accepted Tom Coleman's proposal to go undercover in Tulia to help clean up the drug scene. In doing so, he failed to check Coleman's performance records at counties he'd worked for in prior hirings.
So he thought he wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, he just said, "Yeah, you sound good." Right? Being son of a ranger was enough for him.
Yeah, right.
if he did check the records, and we don't really know, he never did anything about the fact that Coleman had been fired by some of his previous employers.
Dun, dun, dun.
When Stewart actually learned about Coleman's indictment in 1999, he was forced to arrest Coleman and suspend his undercover investigations. The Cochrane County Sheriff, Cochrane County is not far away, who'd accused Coleman of the 1996 theft, wrote to the police officer accreditation agency, "It's my opinion an officer should uphold the law. Mr. Coleman should not be a law enforcement officer." Sheriff Stewart inexplicably had Coleman resume his undercover operation.
Was that inexplicably?
Yeah. What did I say?
Something else.
Did I? Was it better or?
Yeah, much better.
It was innovative.
Right. All right, let's have a look at Tom Coleman. I don't know when proud Texas Ranger Coleman died. I've tried hard to find out. And, there's every Texas Ranger is recorded
His dad,
in a register. Yeah, Tom's dad. But there's nothing recorded about when Joe died or any of the Rangers. It's not all that clear. All I can say is that I hope this very proud man had passed away before his son's trial and conviction in 2004.
Dun, dun, dun.
Jeepers, I didn't see that coming.
Yes. Tom, the lawyerman's son, had no problem at all with sending dozens of innocent people to jail for 25 or more years.
Oh, my Lord.
He made up stories about people whose life was tough enough already in order to take away the most precious thing they had left, their freedom, and then walked down the streets of Tulia, basking in the gratitude of those 6 citizens that felt he'd cleaned up their own town by getting rid of those pesky black folk. Not my word.
Okay. Good to know. Quote, unquote.
What an arsehole.
Some of those who uncovered this story were convinced that even if the townsfolk had known the truth, they wouldn't have given a damn.
So he's not the only a-hole in the room?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He hardly spoke a word of truth in the 18 months undercover. He stole federal money meant to finance the downfall of drug syndicates on himself and used some of it to buy the small amount of drugs that he claimed to have found on his victim. Yet the raids on his targets produced nothing in the way of illegal contraband other than minute amounts of drugs that you could find.
That he'd used state money to buy himself.
Yeah.
God.
Great.
Champion. Not.
The poor souls he targeted knew him only as TJ, a construction worker in the local area. And that was if they knew him at all along. A lot of them who were arrested just thought, who is this guy? According to the documentary maker, Tom Mangold, TJ's cover was that he was a ponytailed white trash biker with a girlfriend whose sexual appetite could only be satisfied with the help of liberal quantities of powdered cocaine.
I think that has to be said in the right accent, Tony. A ponytailed white trash biker with a girlfriend whose sexual appetite could only be satisfied with the help of liberal quantities of powdered cocaine.
That's the one.
However, on one occasion, while in one of the SWAT-like teams sent to pick up one of the accused, the victim claimed his innocence, asking, what exactly have I done? Coleman raised his face mask and said, "How do you recognise me, arsehole?" The guy still didn't
That's where I
recognise him.
recognise my arsehole.
No,
What?
now do you recognise my asshole? I hope that's the other end. Is it prettier than what you're showing me now?
So Coleman was trying to let the people around think he'd seen him many times before, but it was days later that the guy who's been arrested realised he was TJ, a worker that he'd met on 2 occasions, neither of which involved any discussion of drugs at all. Now, Trial by Wine has covered many famous serial killers that have done worse things than Tom did.
No.
But most of them had wiring faults in otherwise impressive brains.
Mm-hmm.
Coleman's brain had no wiring faults, but it was very low voltage grey matter.
Yeah, I would just say, all the engineering jokes are coming out now, but I would just say that actually he stole 25 years off, 46-something people?
No,
That's
that's
a
pretty
life
good,
sentence, isn't it,
Mhm.
Clarky?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he stole people's lives. He might not have murdered them, but
No,
he took
fair comment.
their lives.
Yeah, save that for sentencing.
Yeah.
So he wasn't brilliant. So any cop that was really, like I want to see things are right in this town.
Now do you recognise me, asshole?
Yeah.
That kind of line gave away he wasn't that smart.
Yeah. Now do you recognise I'm an asshole?
That's right.
Yes. Also,
Yes,
now
I
I
had
do.
seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any straight cop
Or gay.
that was looking, yes, or
Gay straight cop.
Any
What's the rest of the alphabet?
and competent cop.
Any
Yes.
non-criminal
I think is what
cop.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want to thank my legal advisors for giving me a jowl on it. Would know something was wrong and would not have a lot of trouble proving it. The shame was that every cop in town was looking the other way. Nobody cared.
So he couldn't have done it on his own, I think.
He
The
could have.
townsfolk
In fact,
being
he
quite
did.
happy. No, but I mean,
But he couldn't have done it if anybody gave a damn what he was
no
up
one
to.
questioned any of this either. Yeah.
Shame on them.
In all honesty,
Shame.
when you first read on this thing, you think Tom Coleman's a total unique arsehole. But the truth is,
I think most
this was
assholes
pretty much the picture of what was going on across that part of Texas at the time. Town after
I
town.
feel like that statement will get a lot of support from the Black Lives Matter movement too, just quietly.
Indeed, yeah. So Coleman didn't bring shame on Tulia. He focused it, but he just spotlighted the disgusting state of race bias by the legal system and a very large component of its white population in Tulia and towns around. The shame should have been there even before TC first set foot in town. In fact, much of the Panhandle region of Texas had similar issues. I'm going to take a look at the parties involved in this. First is the war in crime, and the parties involved were Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr., right? They both decided that
Zero tolerance for drugs.
drugs was a war that we got to win.
They love a good war.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's right. The drug syndicates had effectively replaced the communist nations as something to say, it's all their fault, we'll go get them, we're Americans. So what had happened was that Reagan and then Bush made a great deal of money available to poorer counties to fight these drug barons. And it was pretty easy to get hold of this money. And this is where these Tom Coleman and his like got funded. Through this money.
Is it
these
like
grants.
the pink bat scheme in Australia or the...
I'll tell you what, though.
It's not as
I got
dangerous
Mum and
as
Dad's
the-
house insulated with that scheme, and no one died, and the house is much better for it,
Yeah.
and it was cheap. But yes, I take your point.
Some states and their counties that were doing it tough couldn't wait to get their hands on a share of the money because there was plenty of it lolling about. After Tulia, these funding arrangements were found, and some while after, it took years to dig into them. And people during this period, there were people saying, this is a total waste of money. There are some very inappropriate actions going on here. And the whole thing says, the more people you have a successful arrest on, the more money you will get.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's KPIs, clearance rate and KPIs, yeah.
These guys were known as gypsy cops, the guys who, and what it was, guys said, like, I've got some police training, they had to get a basic minimum of training to be able to carry out the role. There were all sorts of cops, riffraff and well-meaning, getting paid to do this stuff, particularly undercover stuff. Coleman's cases were embarrassingly weak in court. And we'll talk a lot about that. We'll go through the various parties and their part in this.
Like, here's the evidence. I wrote it on my leg.
Yeah, that's right.
No,
yeah,
it was on my,
yeah.
I think it was on my left toe, on my toe on my left foot, my big toe. That's why I
the
think I
problem
wrote
was
that.
that, I showered almost weekly.
I wrote it on my ball sack, but it was a bit sweaty that day, and
yeah,
no,
I couldn't read it. It's very wrinkly.
yeah. I tried to iron it, but that didn't work.
Yeah, writing on corduroy doesn't work.
No.
It's clearly a man's show.
Look, it was embarrassing.
Says Mrs. Magic Pussy.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Nicely played, my friend.
Coleman's cases were absolutely embarrassing at times. A few of them, whilst all those that didn't get thrown out, and there was less than a handful that got thrown out, they had to get thrown out because they were so embarrassingly weak. Like Tanya Wright was one of Coleman's embarrassing failures. In court, she faced a 99-year prison sentence.
Jeepers.
But at the time when Coleman swore she was selling him drugs, she happened to be hundreds of miles away in Oklahoma signing a deposit slip with a check, which is not normally what you'd consider a drug dealer amount of money, because it was a sum total of $8 she was putting into her savings.
Yeah, wow. Is it kind of like they go to court and he goes, these ones did it, and they go, did not, and then they go, well, show us the evidence, and he goes, oh, all right, let's go on to the next one.
You know what? That happened at several layers in this story.
Really?
And it's hard to believe it.
But
was
surely
really
even a half good public defender would have done enough work to say, look, here's the evidence. She was actually somewhere else signing a deposit thing. You know, we've got hard evidence she wasn't where you say she was.
Or also the prosecutor might go, can you show me the evidence before we go to court?
Well, because what do they call them? The attorney, district attorney, is supposed to approve.
What I'll do is I'll give you a rundown on the prosecuting attorneys, the defence attorneys, the judge.
It's probably better than us just speculating, isn't it?
No, it's probably no better, but it's my show.
Yes, good point you make.
Another suspect had his charges dropped when he was able to prove that he'd been at work during the times he supposedly sold Coleman cocaine. And Coleman admitted he couldn't even identify a third person who he'd charged. You know, he said,
Who did? I don't know.
Several of his descriptions were totally wrong.
Someone.
Yeah. No, there was a tall guy with a lot of hair and the guy he described as the person I arrested, and a short, shaven-headed guy was the one who turned up. You know?
So he's kind of going for that whole, it was a African-American, blah, 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 but then he's getting all of the other physical things wrong.
Everything.
Anyway, right.
Yeah, that's right. He's like I said, his grey matter was not impressive.
Yeah, but his asshole factor is high. And his racist factor, anyway.
But maybe he knew he could get away with a lot more than we would ever believe.
As long as I said they were African American, then they'll believe me.
Yeah.
Do you think that he was racist, or do you think that he was just exploiting the racism of the area, that you can just, if I say that...
He was exploiting it. He wanted to be a famous policeman more than anything in the world.
I'm going to go both, because I don't think you could...
If you're not
be racist,
pick on a minority,
and do that. Yeah. So I think
I don't know. I mean, he can just be an asshole, trying to. It's just seeing an opportunity.
But by doing that, you become racist.
There's nothing to suggest he has an unusual but strong moral code that is without racism. So I'm pretty sure he goes along. But I think you're right. Technically, they're not the same thing. Taking advantage of people's racism is not
being racist yourself.
Yeah, because I'd take advantage of a white guy if he was the one.
That's right. It's just easier for me to do this in this scenario.
So the actual first trial was of Joe Moore, who was claimed to be Tulia's drug kingpin. And to be fair, Joe was the nearest thing to a drug lord that Tulia had. He'd said fair cop on times before and done his penalty for minor dealing. But he was adamant he didn't do this. So Joe's drug dealings were penny ante at best. He lived in a little shack. He drove a substantially rust-ridden car. He absolutely insisted he never sold cocaine to Coleman. This is totally unlike the way he was normally. He said, fair cop. The state had absolutely no physical evidence. They never had any corroborating accounts. Nobody else said, I saw this or whatever. Right. Moore had previously been convicted on 2 felonies. He got off a few as well in his youth, and as a result faced the possibility of an enhanced sentence if convicted. Nevertheless, probably strange from his side of the fence, but he put his faith in the judicial system and maintained his innocence on this charge. Joe Moore put his faith in the wrong place. He was found guilty and sentenced to 99 years in prison.
That is disgusting. We have covered murderers who have less of a,
Yeah.
you know, I know
Yeah,
it's the war on drugs, and drugs are bad, and I'm not saying they're not, but no, it's just this,
Yeah, the injustice and
just the time, it's just crazy.
yeah, no one's
1 year to life or 7 years to life. You, mate, 99 years, get, you know, ridiculous.
Take a punt at what the highest sentence was.
150 years.
Anybody else?
210.
Ooh, anybody else? Anybody else, Stuart?
5.
5. There you go.
5 million.
5 million. What was it?
434 years.
434 years. Were any of them served concurrently?
Ludicrous. Yeah.
No, they weren't. That guy had a gun when they arrested him. So they figured...
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah,
Because the only person in Texas with a gun at the time.
Exactly, yeah.
It's the only African American person about to be arrested who had a gun on him.
Who was framed for for selling drugs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
With a gun on him at the time.
So what I'll do now, I'll go quickly through all the players in this. Sheriff Larry Stewart. He's flying along. Everybody's liking Larry Stewart. Larry Stewart, by the way, one description of him from one of the people covering it was he wore a 10-gallon hat. He wore a 10-gallon hat all the time, and he tried his very best to walk like Gary Cooper. When he was walking up.
Putting on the Ritz, wasn't it? Trying hard to look like Gary Cooper. Super duper.
Right, so Stewart accepted Coleman's proposal to go undercover to clean up the drug scene. He failed to check his performance record at counties he'd worked prior to hiring for him. If he did check them, he never did anything about them. And we know nearby Cochrane County tried to get him for stealing or sacked him for stealing only 5 months before and charged him.
So they had charges against him while he was acting as a...
No.
They charged him, but he was let off. He repaid the money back. He took money off his then girlfriend, and
that's
and
okay
blah, blah,
then,
blah,
isn't
and, yeah, and paid the debts
What
back.
a flog.
And then his girlfriend left him. I've got none of that in here because I don't care how shit his life was.
But it's material because if he had a charge against him, then he shouldn't have been hired as a policeman. But as you're saying, they didn't do any checks. There were no checks and balances.
So lax.
Because he was going to bring the money in from the...
Money,
Yeah.
that's right. Money was coming in. Until we get a replacement for him, the money would stop coming in.
Money makes the world go round, the world go round, the world
So
go round.
the prosecution lawyers, I'll sum up very, very quickly. None of them were stars. They made many slip-ups that sometimes the defence people highlighted and sometimes they missed themselves. But the judge and the all-white jury didn't seem to notice any of these slip-ups.
Yeah.
They didn't make a jot of difference. So the prosecution lawyers, you could almost say they were near to good guys because they did their feeble best to get people off by putting forward fairly ordinary cases, and still they won.
God.
The defence lawyers are a little more complex. Defence lawyers provided by the state were paid a fixed amount for their work. And we're talking about hundreds of dollars, not thousands.
Yeah, public defenders.
Yeah.
Pittance.
Yeah, the only way to make any money at all was to deal with the issue swiftly, and swiftly usually meant convince your innocent client to plead guilty and get a reduced sentence.
Yeah.
Right. Most defence lawyers knew that the chance of getting a person of colour acquitted, thank you, from a judge charge was minimal anyway. But the fact that the judge and jury were never in the mood to give a reduced sentence was rarely mentioned to their clients. So they told their clients, like,
If you do this, you'll get a reduced sentence, or you might.
Yeah, that's right.
They know you won't.
Plead guilty.
Yeah.
Plead guilty and you get a reduced sentence.
That's right.
But also, if I fight this charge, I'm doing it for free, basically, because
that's right.
they're paying
I'm
me
losing
for my
money.
court time only.
Yeah. There were a few exceptions to that. Some lawyers, at least one lawyer, Jeff Blackburn, invested a substantial amount of their own time in trying to get innocent people acquitted. But their naivety of the extent of the colour bias of both judge and jury meant that they were giving their clients hope, and yet they were found guilty no matter how many courtroom mistakes the prosecution attorneys made or how poorly Tom Coleman performed in his cross-questioning in court.
Do you think that it was naive, or do you think it was just the fact that they couldn't play along with the system when I've still got to fight this, even though...
I'll give a quote from Jeff Blackburn in a minute, which sums up trying to walk this line
Sure.
for the defence.
When you're talking about all-white jury, like there were 46 people charged. There must have been multiple cases that we're talking about.
No, as far as I can make out, there was certainly one judge for all of them.
So all 46 people
They were
convicted
all
with the
rammed
same
through in a few
jury,
days.
same jury, same judge.
It's not super clear that they were exactly the same jury.
Yeah.
It is super clear that there was never a non-white person on the jury.
Wow.
But also 46 people was 20% of the African American population, didn't you say? So there's like
Adult.
So there's 250 or something. The minors aren't going to be on a jury. I don't know what the population of the town was. Did you establish that?
5,000.
Yeah,
5,000.
right. So they're a massive minority. It's not unusual, I think, in that case to think that
You
African
could argue
Americans
the
won't
numbers.
be on a jury.
Yeah.
But the fact that the only people appearing in front of the jury are African American is the problem.
Jeff Blackburn did an enormous amount of free work. He still didn't behave brilliantly. He still didn't do brilliantly in court because he had a bit of naivety as well. He said, in fact, when he was asked about racism, there's a racial element in all this, but it's not an overtly racist sort of approach. This is middle of him defending people who are clearly innocent. Even if they weren't innocent, there was nowhere near enough legal load to send them to jail. You know, Blackburn says it's not an overtly racist sort of approach.
Do you agree with that?
No, I think it's totally racist. But you said earlier, Paul, people have to learn to live and translate stuff in their own head in a way that lets them do their job.
Did I say that?
Huh. Did he not, Stuart?
I don't remember it.
Did I allot that to him?
No. So what I was talking about is it racist if you? Are you racist if you just go and prosecute black people because that's where the money is? And I still think yes. But what I wonder is for someone living in that community who is fighting the good fight, he probably sees a whole lot of things that are absolutely in-your-face racism. And this is something that's harder to point out, certainly on a case-by-case thing. So with the benefit of hindsight, where you can go, they prosecuted 46 people, all of whom were African-American, then that's absolutely racist. But at the time, you don't know that data, if that makes sense.
No, but the judge, the jury, the people around town, the newspaper, all seem to be perfectly happy that the only drug bastards in this town are what they would call black.
No, I understand that. I guess what I'm saying is that, so if the society is, in terms of on a scale of 0 to 10 racist, they're 10, then an act of 5 or 6 will seem far less racist.
Yeah. They're gonna normalise what.
Correct, and you know,
the environment
20 odd years on, the world is very different in this space. I think, albeit still not perfect, but we're calling that stuff out a whole lot better now.
Yeah.
So he probably would have felt more comfortable.
Today
saying this is bullshit, mate.
Yeah, absolutely right. So you got to give credit for those people in the early 2000s that
he's possibly playing the game a bit to go, I can't go too hard, or you know,
he's got to live in this environment, or he's got to go off, and unless he wants to go right out of the Texas Panhandle, which not many people do, I would think, who live in the Texas Panhandle, funny enough, then he's out the frying pan into the fire. But
is that better than being out of the panhandle into the frying pan?
The panhandle just means a skinny strip, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a little bit like, it's like something big goes suddenly very slim.
Yeah.
I think, what do we call it? A spit, don't we? We call it a spit.
Porpoise spit.
Yeah, like some little skinny bit of land.
But I think it's fair to say panhandle. I'm just wondering if you go from the frying pan handle into the frying pan, then into the fire. And can you go from the panhandle straight to the fire and skip the pan itself, or is that not possible?
No, you'd bang your head on the pan.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
All right, the judge.
Here we go.
Judge Edward Self is as culpable, perhaps even more so, as Tom Coleman. He heard all of the trials, plea hearings, and sentencing sessions. He was repeatedly reminded that the evidence of their guilt was based on the word of one person, Tom Coleman, who on several occasions showed to be, not dependable in court. A defense lawyer, not Blackburn, and one of the other defense lawyers filed evidence for Judge Self's consideration that documented Coleman's 1997 indictment for theft when working in another county, and also his arrest on that charge while conducting the Tulia undercover operation. Judge Self immediately sealed the motion, which I understand means it doesn't mean picking up your dog shit with a plastic bag, but it does mean...
I didn't think it would mean that.
No, that came to my mind straight away. So it's sealing the motion.
Yeah. I understand now, yes.
And certainly not a moist
Tony
motion.
loves talking about his motions.
Oh. Did you get motion sickness?
I did.
Schmitty does.
I have to hear about him and the dog one more time.
I thought you meant
Anyway.
because of the smell. Oh, I've got
No.
motion sickness.
It's more, he just likes to tell me, I took Buff for a walk. He did a really solid poo. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well, I'd stop saying, look, I'll
Yes,
stop
yeah,
opening the
yeah,
bag
yeah,
to you
yeah.
when I come up.
You're all heart.
And he likes to do it usually when I'm either eating food or preparing food.
Oh, eating I prefer, definitely.
Yeah, it's the best time to talk about the dog's poo or your own. Mm-hmm.
Sealing the motion does mean in American law and Texas law that any reference to the topic during the cases, including potential references to any other information about Coleman's past that might question his witness account, is banned. Verboten. You cannot bring it up. You cannot
So you can't
infer
bring
it.
him into any disrepute.
You can't say this guy's...
That's shit, isn't it?
That is what the judge did. He simply used his power as a judge to conceal critical information and then continue to award extremely harsh sentences to defendants based on nothing more than Coleman, a guy who'd already looked shaky in every way possible, on Coleman's word.
And what's his name? Judge...
Self.
Edward Self.
Judge Self.
Yeah.
Ed Self.
Is that a fucking joke?
No,
Oh,
no.
asshole.
In fact, when I got the audible version of the book I referred to about Tulia and this case, there was a whole section where I was listening while I was driving and I was concentrating on the spells and I kept coming back. And the guy said several times he wrote a note to self.
Oh, see?
And I know,
Yes, exactly. Confusing.
Had me very confused, but no, he's the judge. He's definitely the arsehole of a judge.
Right.
The jury. I thought of having statements to individual notable people in town saying very, very racist things, whilst not thinking they're being racist, to be honest. They can't look after themselves, so sometimes we go around and help them cook. And,
What?
yeah. So I'm not talking about that, but what you can presume in a small town that the Tulia Sentinel, the town's newspaper, is well read. What the Sentinel wrote on the first day of the trial was, "We do not like these scumbags doing business in our town. They're a cancer in our community. It's time to give them a major dose of chemotherapy behind bars."
Wow.
A few days later, his headline after sentencing was completed was, "Tulia's streets cleared of garbage."
And this is like 1999.
Yeah, this is not overt.
Yeah, no.
According to Blackburn.
I'm wondering what overt is in the context
That's right.
of that town.
That's right, yeah.
But see, they would say it's in the context of the fact that they're criminals, not that they're black. Or not that they're...
Yeah, well, because scumbags doesn't
That's
mean
right.
black people as official evidence. But it sure as hell is what they meant.
God, gee.
Because every scumbag was black except a few who were partners of scumbags.
Yeah, but they would just say we're talking about the drug sellers
Yes.
who have been
involved in
convicted
drugs.
on
Yeah.
no evidence
Yeah.
by our...
Yeah.
And
By
that's
our
the bit where it's
idiots.
hard to kind of pin down the racist element.
Yeah.
Because it's just coincidental
Yeah.
that they're people of colour.
It's institutionalized. This kind of sounds like, one of those movies that we kind of love to watch where there's the the people of color or the African Americans or whatever are being wronged, but then they come out on top, kind of thing.
And that's right. Yeah,
and it feels like this is something from the, I don't know, I'm going to get the year wrong, but maybe the 50s or the 20s, not the late 90s.
Not the late 90s.
That institutionalization is awful, but I don't doubt that happens here as well. And coming from someone who doesn't have that prejudice against them, it's frustrating to hear these sorts of examples because it's kind of makes
I think when you talk about these things happening in the 20s and 50s, I think the 20s and 50s, the revolution did occur, but it didn't occur in certain parts of America.
Yeah, no, I understand. All I'm saying is that's kind of the feel that it has to it. The fact that it's the 90s, and then you think, that the whole Black Lives Matter campaign is happened over the last couple of years. It's no bloody wonder. And these are the cases you don't hear enough about where all of the people who did this get brought into shame down the track. I think they just get away with it.
No, I think that's right. Talking a little bit about why they could give these outrageously long sentences. State law in some states, including Texas, had got tough with drug peddlers, right? And you remember there was two quite popular presidential periods where they said, what you got to worry about is drug peddlers and
crack
drug
down on
barons.
drugs,
And is this around the Pablo Escobar time in terms of cartels?
Good question.
That was late 90s, I'm sure.
It would certainly overlap. Whether it was at the most covered period for Escobar, I don't know.
No, what I mean is, and I guess it's not so much.
But that would have been the silent face of it. It would have been stuff pouring in from these barons.
Yeah.
But what's happening? They've put and it was enormous amount of money at that date, tens and tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars going through these half unqualified coppers.
Yeah.
It was all part of this. All the bad decisions America made about fighting communism, Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera.
The Red Terror.
It's that same thing again. If you make someone, we're in danger of doing it with China. Russia owns it. Russia's clearly a bad guy, But China, we're all scared of China, so we paint this. We gotta stop them. We gotta stop every step they make. That's what's happening at this time. What they did in regard to state law in some states, including this state, was they introduced stuff that pushed drug peddling to an increased level of penalty, to first or second degree felonies.
That's why we get to 99 years when you can get less for murder.
Right. But I think that's got to be understood in the context of the time, and that's kind of why I'm just doing a bit of Googling, because there's in the early 90s there's a Medellin cartel, the Sinaloan cartel, the Tijuana cartel, and I think there was escalating crime in Mexico from a lot of those,
absolutely.
which was then starting to impact America, which is why they then went, all right, we've got to go hard.
And Texas.
Texas, of course.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be a racist asshole in the process.
Yeah, I don't think having tough penalties for drug crimes, mind you, I think if you look at the last 20 years, there's no evidence that it stops people doing anything. But having, tough penalties might have been a sound idea. To your point, picking on a particular ethnic minority and falsifying that they've actually done something that they hadn't done is the crux of the issue.
And also something like, somebody selling drugs in this town in Texas versus catching, El Chapo or Pablo Escobar.
That's the point.
They're the ones who should get the 400-year penalty.
That's the point. I don't think Tom Moore knew any of the names you. The drug lord you do it. I'm certainly sure he wasn't dealing with any of them.
And the judge should know enough to go, you know what? If he was guilty of what he's being charged with, is a small town operator in a small town, not a drug lord, and therefore doesn't deserve 400 years. So the judge / jury needs some improvement.
A little. And
we'll get to that later.
That's right. Yeah, I'll tell you something about describing these towns that seem out of sync with the big towns that we know, with the cities that we know. There was a film, I don't know when, 2000-ish. It had who was right. I have to
Tony, if you're going to sub in for Swanny, you need to up your game on pop culture. Because,
I could ask Swanny. Yeah. So
channel your best Swanny.
Who was right? Die Hard means which?
Bruce Willis.
Who was married to
Demi Moore.
Demi Moore was in a film with.
Yes! Look at us. Between us, we equal one Swanny.
Demi Moore was in a film with. Now we're talking about Ghostbusters.
Patrick Swayze.
No, Ghostbusters.
Was he in Ghostbusters?
Demi Moore wasn't in a film.
She was in with Ghost, not Ghostbusters.
No.
Dan Aykroyd or
Dan Aykroyd. Yeah. Candy, the
John Candy,
chubby
Candy.
fellow.
Yeah.
Yes,
Candy.
Yeah, they were all in a movie where the aforementioned lady
Demi
was
Moore.
in a car with work associates. The boss had got a BMW. They went They got lost. They went off the main road. They went speeding through this little town. They got picked up by John Candy, and then they got put in front for
Nothing
speeding.
but trouble.
This. Yeah.
Probably. Who else was in it?
Yeah.
Well, had Dan Aykroyd in it.
Yeah, it was Dan Aykroyd, the judge.
A financier meets a spurned lover and agrees to take her to a business
Oh,
meeting.
But it must have been a follow-up to this film.
No, that's it. That'll be the film.
Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, John Candy.
Yeah,
That's
maybe
it,
Chevy
you're
Chase.
right.
I'm not sure about
Do
Chevy
they go
Demi
through a
Moore,
strange town
Peter Aykroyd.
and get chucked in jail?
Oh, well, hang on. Let me go back to...
Just look at the synopsis.
Wait, is there a judge?
Just give me a bone because you're throwing about 4,000.
Is there a crazy judge involved?
Nothing but trouble. Judge Alvin.
Right. Okay. If there's a judge
Dan
in it,
Aykroyd plays Judge Alvin.
Yeah,
JP.
that's right. Yeah. Right.
Same movie.
So he's an absolute lunatic. You know, they're city slickers. They've not gone very far from the office, but they've gone in this little wrong road that's gone into this little town with an absolutely lunatic judge.
Right.
It's a fabulous film.
Judge Self.
Basically Deliverance, but it's a judge instead of a hunter.
It's right. It's Deliverance with your full suit
the clothes on.
Yeah.
Also this story.
Without any male rape.
If you've not seen it, you should go hunt it down because it is funny at times, but fundamentally like scary.
Yeah, it's a comedy horror, it says.
I got charged for dramatic overspeeding. I was going to lose my license in Mansfield.
Are you going to say Mansfield's like this town?
No. Actually in Mansfield. Right?
Yeah,
I was just outside Mansfield doing a ridiculous speed, and the copper booked me. He was perfectly right and all that. I had to drive up there for the case, and I had this awful feeling I was going to get Dan Aykroyd.
Or Judge Self.
Yeah. No, Aykroyd would have been...
Yeah.
No, Aykroyd never ruined as many lives as
Judge
Self
Self
did in such a short period, yeah.
Yes.
But watch the film.
Yeah,
I
were you
won't
worried
go on
you were going to get a worse sentence because you're not from here, boy?
I was worried that it was going to be hostile, outsider. What the F do you think you're doing? It's driving through.
It's funny because a friend of ours was coming here to have some wines one Friday night recently, and our road is closed at the moment, so there's literally very little traffic. And on the way here, he got done for speeding by Highway Patrol, who are patrolling a no-through road because we're cut off. And he got fined for doing, not a huge speed, but he also had a drink in his car because he was on his way here to have a drink. Yeah. And we were all going, that's not right. because he's from here. And so, if it was someone from out of town coming here who had no business being here, you'd go, that's wrong. But
that's right.
Yeah. So
a local.
It's actually time that you came back to Melbourne now. You are starting.
You're in danger.
Yeah. I'm totally thinking if you came speeding down our street,
come back.
I'm lost. I'm a lost soul.
Put the shotgun away.
What about my banjo?
So I'm trying to say how they could even were allowed to give such strong penalties
Yeah.
to these people. Some states, as part of this whole environment of a couple of presidents of the enemy is drugs,
Yeah.
started saying, well, if it's that evil, we can't send people away for very long for this evil thing they're doing. So they looked at ways to change it. One of them was to make the carrying of more than an 8-ball of cocaine confirmation that person is a dealer. Paul, you'll know well what an 8-ball is, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm all over it. Yeah, it's the ball you sink last playing pool. So I'm going to assume it's a ball of cocaine that's about
size?
the same size as the 8-ball.
Exactly where I went, but nothing to do with it.
Oh, really?
It's just over 3 grams. Why it's called an 8-ball, I have no idea.
Right.
Oh,
But it's just over 3 grams.
Sworn
that's
that's what
wrong
it
then.
was.
That's wrong.
It's a funny name for a US imperial
Right.
measure.
Yeah, right.
But it's called an 8-ball. Now, it's just 3 grams, which, as you know, if you go to a really known venue for being a bit high when you go there, there's going to be a few first-degree felonies in there, right?
Right.
Because they made this. If you had an 8-ball of cocaine, you were a dealer.
Right.
If you were a dealer that was within 1,000 feet, 300 meters, of a school or a child care centre,
Yeah.
you were now, if it was cocaine, for example, you were now first-degree felony.
Oh.
A first-degree felony.
Is that like first-degree murder?
Not quite. Yeah, well, it may be 30-year maximum sentence
Yeah, right.
Jesus.
for one
For having
one
3 grams of
event.
cocaine within how far of a school?
300 metres.
1,000 feet, yeah.
And so if you're a school kid doing cocaine at school,
And you got an 8-ball
and you've
in your
got an
pocket.
8-ball because there's a couple of you doing it, you're all fucked.
But I mean, I don't know anything about measurements
Unless
of
you're
drugs,
white,
but,
in which case you're fine.
like, how many lines do you get out of a gram?
How many lines do
you
you get out of an
get
8-ball? 8?
Well,
Right, you
three
get
times what
you
you
get
out of a
10
gram.
lines out of a gram, I'm told, and you get
So that's
therefore
30 lines worth.
about 32.
So 30 lines is a bit more than
32,
just you and your
33
mates.
lines.
Yeah.
It's not a lot if you're meeting your friends.
How many friends? What, a line for everyone at lunchtime? And also, how expensive would that have been in
You don't
1999?
do just one line a night.
Please stop
I
incriminating
understand.
yourself. What is more important?
Chop.
How much is a gram of cocaine? And I guess how much was it? It's like a school kid, to your point, though. What I'm trying to say is, unless they were very wealthy, it's unlikely to have an 8-ball of coke on them at school in 1999.
8-ball cocaine, what you should know. 3.5 grams of cocaine, which is
3 to 3.5,
which is
that's
1/8
right.
of an ounce. Hence the 1/8
8-ball, right.
Drug dealers and people who buy drugs also use the term 8-ball to refer to 3.5 grams of meth. The term 8-ball can refer to 1/8 of an ounce of cocaine or any other drug. How much does an 8-ball cost? An 8-ball of cocaine typically ranges from 60 to 120. This is US.
Not in Australia.
No, this is US.
But in 1999, more
No, he's
importantly.
not talking about 1999.
Well,
He's
yeah, I
talking
don't know
about now.
what year, but this is Texas. This article is from.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We've got to be seen as
It's
being
got-
credible.
You basically, if you're selling cocaine or any other
We're just
hard
having it
drug,
on you. You're not even having to sell it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have it on your
yeah,
person.
if you possess it, you're up for first degree. They do recognise that the jails will be overfilled if we say that applies to marijuana. So it's only a second degree felony, 15-year sentence for having more than an 8-ball of marijuana
Selling it, yeah.
within 1,000 feet of a school.
So to get 400 odd years, do you have to have lots of 8-balls, or is there something else that you're going to tell us?
And a gun.
They don't.
3 8-balls and a gun.
I don't know.
And-
that you had a gun as well.
and
but
you have to be
I
a
don't
person
know.
of colour.
You almost definitely had to be a person of colour
Or
to
at
get
least,
anywhere in the
the
or
world.
at least
Baseline's
sleeping
50
with
years.
one.
Yes,
Yeah.
It let these people go wild with sentences. I don't know how you get 434 has got to be consecutive sentencing. But I don't know what order. Maybe he said
434
maybe he said he met up with her 10 times and bought drugs off her. He never did. He never had much drugs because he never spent the money he took to buy drugs from the fund to buy drugs.
I'm not a fan of sentences that go longer than someone could possibly live. I think we've established that through this podcast.
Yeah.
But 400 odd years, like for someone who has, God, I don't know how much they had allegedly and actually didn't have, but what would make Judge Self sit there and go, yeah, that one needs 400 years?
I'll tell you exactly what would make him say that.
Tell me.
Anything that the prosecuting
Liars.
lawyer
said. Lawyers.
No. We debate that for a long while. Yes, I think anything that the guy said he wanted, he got with Judge Self.
Yeah, right. Is that like Leo Getz? Leo what? Leo Getz. Do you remember Leo Getz from Lethal Weapon 2?
Yeah, because that was...
Why did they call you Leo Getz? Because what? Leo what? Leo Getz. That was...
Joe Pesci.
Yeah,
Joe Pesci.
Pesci. Yeah. Massive sentences, and this is why. So, to the nearest thing to a high point in this, the heroes of this story. First of all, Jeff Blackburn didn't give up. When all these guys went down, Jeff Blackburn stayed in trying to get them acquitted. But the acquittal thing didn't really happen till somebody just out of graduate school, working for a government agency, heard about the case. Now, she had Indian parentage. She looks Indian. So maybe that was part... Well, it shouldn't be, but...
Yeah.
But...
She's a person of colour.
She has a passion for these things, obviously. Let's go
that's
there.
where we're going.
Yeah. She was straight out of law school. She had no credibility at all, but she managed to persuade the agency she worked for and people from a top lawyer firm that this was something worth fighting. Not just about Tulia, about what's happening in some parts of America. She worked with, and she found it quite hard to work with Jeff Blackburn because Jeff Blackburn's strategies hadn't proven very successful, and she still didn't feel they would, but she needed all his knowledge. So she they worked together. That was impressive. But she got all of these people, without exception, acquitted 4 years after they'd been put away.
Yeah, wow. Got it. What was her name?
Vanita Gupta.
Vanita Gupta. Go Vanita.
Now, today, she is the United States Associate Attorney General under Joe Biden. She had a similar role under Barack Obama, but funnily enough, she wasn't really Donald Trump's cup of tea.
Why is that?
So, hard to say.
Hard to say.
Well played, yes. So she was in the role, she got kicked out, and now she's back in. Yeah.
Yeah,
God.
because she's bloody good.
The problem's not solved, is it?
Yeah.
No, but
finally,
the problem's not solved though, is it? If she,
no, that's right. Yeah.
God.
Oh, really good point.
Yeah.
Well, it's worse because she's a woman too.
Well,
what difference would that make?
Depends who you're asking. Joe Biden and Barack Obama are fine with it.
No, they're fine. That's right. But if we're talking to Donald Trump,
Yeah.
who's a misogynist and a racist,
Yeah.
so, she ticks two boxes.
So what do you think happened to Joe Coleman?
Joe Coleman.
Did he get turned into the Coleman medal?
It would have been nice if that's literal.
Like in a Han Solo kind of way where he got frozen? No.
Was he assassinated?
I reckon he got killed.
All preferable over what really happened. He was given a 10-year suspended sentence.
Are you kidding?
And never spent a day behind bars.
For putting people who are in jail who are innocent for 400 years.
He should have been lynched.
He gets 10-year suspended sentence.
But if you're looking at what would hurt him, Daddy would not have been proud of
He
it.
should get 10 years suspended by his balls sentence.
I couldn't give two fucks what he felt.
That would be better. Yeah, I don't. That's not enough. We'll get to him.
Mofo out. Oh, he's going down.
Thank God his dad died long before this came out.
Well,
You don't know. His father could have been a massive racist and had no issue with it whatsoever.
He wasn't a racist.
How would you know? He was a ranger.
He was a ranger.
That doesn't mean he wasn't racist. He was
It
in the
does.
same. He was
It
working
does.
in the same system.
He was blessed by God, Schmitty.
Some people have got a bit of hero worship for the Texas
No,
Rangers.
racism is Not possible with a reindeer. Rapism occasionally.
Oh, Jesus.
Rapism.
Move
That's
along.
another story.
Move along.
So-
Over there.
I spent too long looking at the records.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's it for the story, yes, of Tulia and the appalling things that have gone on. So
No, that's
shall
the
we
break.
sentence?
No,
No, that's the end of the content.
no, that's absolutely the end. Yeah.
So what do you think, guys?
Goodness.
I'm
I like the suspended sentence from his balls. I thought that was quite a good one.
I think that would be appropriate. I want him 10 years of pain, absolute minimum.
Give him 8 days of
I
it.
think overall, this is just exactly one of those things that just infuriates me. Where I kind of clearly I'm white and I don't face these things. I also don't expect them, and when I hear about them, they really annoy me. And it's like the episode of the camouflage assassin that we did, where there's so much talk about racism and how it happens, and I don't see it in my world, so I'm kind of naive to it. And then when people bring it to my attention, it really angers me because I just don't get it. I don't understand why someone would do this, why a town would do this, why a system would do this. And the fact that it's 20, probably 22, 23, 24 years ago, that's my lifetime, and I should be aware of that stuff more so than I am. So it's awful. I don't like it, which makes me want to sentence more. No, and so there's clearly I think a town of people who all are like-minded, and this is the problem with no diversity, where everyone thinks the same.
Yeah.
Everyone.
And more than a town is what worries.
Well,
people.
yes, I think that's exactly right. And the fact that people in the legal profession, and I'm sure I'm way more naive in this space than I should be, but the fact that people in the legal profession can sit there and go, this is okay and we're fine with it, we don't think this is not okay, is just awful. So I think, yes, Tom Coleman, have I got it wrong already?
No, you got
That's
it right.
right.
Are you talking about the boy or the dad?
Yeah, the boy. Joe's the dad, yeah. So
that's right.
Tom Coleman definitely needs a suspended sentence. I'm
From
not
his
sure.
scrotum?
100%. I'm not sure 10 years is the right term, though.
From his corduroys?
And what I think is we probably should do something like Miley Cyrus, also known as Miley Cyrus, doing Wrecking Ball, but on Tom Coleman, who is having his suspended sentence. So when she sings, I came in like a wrecking ball, she's actually sitting on Tom Coleman in the film clip rather than a wrecking ball, who is suspended by his balls, which will make it even more painful for him. And there could also be a little bit of Sia with Chandelier.
Yeah.
But also the Chandelier is Tom Coleman suspended by his balls. And that could go on for, as far as I'm concerned, all eternity. I'm not really fussed. I just think...
Can I suggest that's over the top? Or can I suggest you go for 434 years?
Oh.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I'm happy for you to readjust my time frame when it's your turn to sentence. But I just think, I just don't care. These people, I think he's absolutely racist. I think he's horribly opportunistic. I think he has nothing in mind other than his own self-benefit and his own self-worth. Like, God, how do you go to court and lie and put people away for that time frame? You have no place in this world. Just go.
Yeah.
So, that's my sentence for him. Judge Self,
Ooh.
I'm going to sentence him to, the elf on a shelf that people do before Christmas? There's going to be a new prison thing that goes on throughout the year, and it's called Judge Self on a Shelf. So Judge Self is going to be shrunk down to the size of the elf, but he's going to have all the things done to him that people do to the elf in the lead up to Christmas. And I think prisoners who have a lot of time on their hands will have a lot of opportunity to think of things they're going to do to Judge Self on the shelf.
Especially if they've been sentenced.
By Judge Self,
Ooh,
yes.
yeah.
So he's just going to have that for the term of 434 years because that's how long he's given one person. So his existence should hopefully be very painful and full of awkward positions and possibly, a little bit of voodoo doll action where they stab him or punch him or whatever.
I'm so ignorant in the ways of trial by one. I think you should pick up the
I
sentencing.
see. Oh, someone's passing the baton.
Facilitation.
Tony, given that you're channeling Swanny, what you're supposed to say is that I just find it really hard to, at this point, I'm not very good at the punishing.
You go before me.
I don't know. Oh.
If she listens to this.
I find this so hard.
This is always the hardest bit for me.
Oh, it is. It's always the hardest part for me. Oh, it's not for me. So I will
Bring it.
I'll bring it. Yeah. So from my perspective, sorry, I've been trying to think about how to represent Swanny as well as I can in terms of a psychological nut punch. And so I think, firstly, for the juries and the judge, I just want to send them to the same term of jail because they haven't committed any crime apart from being douchebags.
Who haven't? The jury and the judge?
Let them go to jail for not committing any crimes.
Yep.
And they can be sentenced for the same period of time as they thought it was appropriate to send other innocent people to jail for.
Yeah.
And the judge, though, can get the 434 years because he's a particularly highest order douchebag.
Of Judge Self on a Shelf or a different punishment?
Self on a shelf, yeah. Oh, no, I don't care. Jail, people who have worked in law enforcement and the judicial system don't do very well in jail. They've often sent people there, so I think it'd be pretty unpleasant for him. As for Mr. Coleman, the thing that Mr. Coleman was able to yes, I get that he was exploiting people, but the thing that made that possible for him was this idea that he could go from town to town and was anonymous, and so he could go undercover. So for his sentence, I'm going to turn him into a massive celebrity prior to him doing any of this work, so that everyone in the country knows who he is. He can't go undercover. His face sweats so badly that he can't wear a moustache or anything, so he can't put a costume on, he can't put a disguise on, and everyone knows who he is, and everyone knows he's just a nasty, nasty little grub, and he doesn't get any work in undercover work, and he doesn't get the opportunity to fit up all these innocent people and steal from the state and do all the other nefarious things that I'm sure that we don't even know about, but I'm sure he was doing it because he sounded like a complete hustler.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to basically make him so well known that he can't do the work to be able to actually manipulate the situation the way that he did.
I like
And then we'll hang him by his
scrotum.
Yeah.
So one other thing that occurred to me with him is, so you know how they're removing a lot of statues from, I don't really understand the whole American system with this, but maybe from Confederate times or something. I don't.
We are doing it here as well, but anything that's sort of where we've glorified someone who's a slave owner or...
Yeah.
But it's mostly about slavery.
Yeah, but so what I'm thinking is maybe he could be turned into a statue that is a statue that represents racism, that people are absolutely allowed to go and egg or
Spit on.
graffiti or do all of those disrespectful things that you can't do. So, and that's why you have to remove these statues. Let's put him up there as a statue so that people can actually go, you know what, when I get angry with racists, he's the one I'm going to take it out on.
And, of course, he can feel everything.
Yeah, totally. He's in there. He's
in there, but he's stuck and he can't
Han
say or get out.
Solo-esque.
Yeah.
But actually, that's amazing for all sorts of things. I'm just thinking of
Everyday uses for the Han Solo as
no. Every time you find somebody that embodies
what you hate.
evil.
A disgusting thing, yeah.
You create a statue for them, and every major city in the world has a row of statues of the worst that,
I think
we
it's
won't
part of
clean the
trial
spit
by
up
wine
until
world.
people...
Yes.
It's like trial by wine world.
Can we call it the Avenue of Dishonour?
I was going to say gallery
Yeah.
or something, but the Avenue of Dishonour is fine.
Yeah.
And then we actively encourage patrons of Trial by Wine World when they're on their wonderful holiday enjoying our theme park
That's right.
to get in there and just go nuts on it.
Yeah, go nuts. Go sick on this fucker.
All right, well, Tony, well done on your first foray into
first one.
presenting. I think you
Yes,
did a
well
very
done.
good job.
Braver than I.
I know it
When
took
you
you about
said
3
my
months to
first
write
one-
that. So first one that you've presented, he wrote
He did write R. I remember you
Underwater
saying that.
Stone.
Yes.
Underwater Stone.
Yes.
Yeah, I rewrote it, but he wrote
Yeah.
it for me originally. Yeah.
So at the start, Tony, you said that it was about time that it was done properly or something along those lines.
That was just to wind you up.
Yeah, no, I understand, but how do you feel now? Did you do it properly?
No, I did it. I did it that it won't embarrass TPW.
I did it my way,
But-
and I did it
No.
my way.
Good show, Tony. Good one, guys. Shame we didn't have Swanny. I think she might have enjoyed that one, but
She would have.
you know, and we all know she won't listen to it.
She's one of our top unlisteners.
That's right. So, you know, hi, Swanny. So, yeah, this one's for you, Swanny. And as we say every week, I miss you already.
Ciao. Well done, Tony.
Bye.
Love you. Long time.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.